This is New York's #1 news, Channel 7 Eyewitness News, with David Navarro and Shirley Hallicott, and Bill Evans with the exclusive AccuWeather forecast. Now, Eyewitness News at noon.
We're following breaking news this afternoon. In a building under construction goes up in flames in Yonkers. These are pictures from Newscopter 7. The smoke could be seen for miles.
Plus, a deadly freak accident. An 80-year-old man killed when a tree crashes down onto his car. The accident causing a school to cancel classes.
And developing right now, reaction to the death of former Fox News chairman Roger Ailes, who left the network in disgrace for sexual harassment allegations. This afternoon, we'll tell you how his widow and former colleagues are now remembering him. And good afternoon to you. I'm Liz Cho. Charlene is off today.
I'm David Navarro. We're going to begin with the developing story. The man known as the architect of Fox News, Roger Ailes, passing away.
Yeah, his death comes nearly a year after he was forced to leave Fox News Channel amid sexual harassment accusations. Ailes was 77 years old, but what exactly killed him remains unclear.
Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett live at the Fox News headquarters in Midtown with reaction in the very latest. NJ.
That's right, Dave. The news broke at about 8:40 this morning when Ailes' wife confirmed that her husband had, in fact, died. Yes, Ailes was 77 years old, and no, we do not yet know how he died. But we do know how he lived.
He built Fox News from the ground up. Roger Ailes was a cable news colossus. Brilliant to some, diabolical to others, he changed the face of American media and became a powerful force for conservative politics.
He found what the economists call a market inefficiency, an audience that was not being served.
Ailes grew up in working-class Ohio and started his career in local news. He became the executive producer of The Mike Douglas Show, but his career took a sharp turn after he became an advisor to Richard Nixon, then Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush.
I always thought, you know, the only way to do it is hard work, and you got to be better and smarter than the next guy.
He ran CNBC before he was tapped by Rupert Murdoch to launch the Fox News Channel in 1996. Determined, he said, to balance what he called liberal bias in mainstream American media. But his career ended in scandal just last year after several prominent female staffers at Fox News accused him of sexual harassment. Roger was my best friend, said his wife in a statement today. The most wonderful, loving husband and father to our son Zachary. He was a loyal friend to so many. Roger was a patriot, grateful to live in a country that gave him so much opportunity to work hard, to rise, and to give back. During a career that stretched over more than 5 decades, his work in entertainment, in politics, and in news affected the lives of many millions. And so, even as we mourn his death, we celebrate his life. End quote.
And a reaction now from former President George H.W. Bush on Twitter. Roger Ailes was not perfect, he said, but he was my friend and I loved him. A reaction from News Corp chairman Rupert Murdoch, calling Ailes a brilliant broadcaster and a patriot. Again, we do not know how Ailes died. He was 77 years old. We'll continue to follow reaction and have the latest for you on Eyewitness News at 5 o'clock tonight. Now we're live in Midtown. NJ Burkett, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
NJ, thank you. And you could read more about Roger Ailes' life, the highs and lows of his career at ABC7NY.
Well, now to a dose of summer and spring and an AccuWeather alert. It is hot and humid out there. We could hit record high temperatures today. So how long will this summer-like weather last? Meteorologist Bill Evans here with our first look at the AccuWeather forecast. Bill.
Well, David and Liz and everyone, thank you for joining us. Looks like the peak of that heat is going to be today. It's 89 degrees already at noon today. Normally we would be at about 68 degrees, but we're at 89, 21 degrees warmer than normal. And you also see we have a south to a southwest wind here, pumping up a little moisture. And notice that hazy look, which is why we have this air quality warning until 11 o'clock tonight. And that's because the particles in the atmosphere, the principal participant ozone with the moisture, with the heating, creates unhealthy breathing conditions this afternoon. Plus, with that southwest wind, there's also a small craft advisory. So small boats under 30 feet, got to be very careful. Even in Jamaica Bay, there's that advisory today. Temperatures, 88 Bensonhurst, already 91 Garrettson Beach, 92 Whitestone, Queens. That's with this southwest wind here. So records are going to pop everywhere in just a couple of hours. It's 90 at Sussex, but notice the south-facing shores with that wind coming out of the southwest. The waters of the Atlantic still in the mid-50s. It's cooler on the south-facing shores. It's 92 for the heat index at LaGuardia, 90 at Newark. So it's a couple of degrees warmer with this humidity today. Unlike yesterday, we really got some hot temperatures out there now with the humidity added in, 92 at Toms River and 90 degrees right around Morristown. So we got this southwest wind. That'll keep the south-facing shores cooler. We'll have this big ridge of high pressure off to the west, off to the east, keeping everybody off to the west very hot. Now, we'll talk about how long this lasts in the AccuWeather forecast coming up, as well as a look at the weekend in just a few minutes. Liz, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you very much. We're following some breaking news right now. We're going to show you some live pictures that we are getting. You were looking at pictures from Times Square. You can see that car there in the upper part, the upper corner of your screen. You can see firefighters there are working on it. That car was on fire just a short time ago. You can see it is still smoking. Firefighters are working very diligently trying to get that fire out. But this is happening right at 44th and Broadway, right at the heart of Times Square. So you can imagine the traffic problems that this is creating for pedestrians and cars. Again, you're looking at live pictures there. You can see FDNY firefighters there on scene trying to get this fire out. As soon as we know more information, you can see them putting water on it right there. You can see some flames kind of underneath the car a second ago.
We really don't know a lot about what is behind this accident at this point, if anybody was injured. You can't help but remember the 2010 Times Square incident where someone attempted to set a car bomb off, but at this point, there's nothing to indicate that there's any bombing or terrorist attack. But whenever you have a car on fire, accident situation, where they got to close down Times Square, everything is on the table to be discussed. But beyond the issue of the fire and that accident, obviously this is going to have a big commute problem. This is a major thoroughfare through the city of Manhattan right now, and they're going to work hard to probably get that car out of there as fast as possible.
Yeah, you can see it looks like now that the smoke is slowly starting to dissipate here. It looks as though the car is on its side. We do not know how that happened or what kind of incident led to this situation here happening on 44th and Broadway. But you can see firefighters appearing to kind of get control of that, what appeared to be a small car fire. Again, this happening in the heart of Times Square. You can see 2 fire units right there. Unfortunately, we cannot, this is our fixed camera down there, we cannot widen out the shot to give you a better sense of how this is impacting Times Square. So unfortunately we don't have control over this camera, so we cannot move it or widen it out at all. But you can imagine the impact that this is having in the immediate vicinity. You can see some police officers who are now walking into the screen there.
Yeah, and remember that Times Square has been transformed into a pedestrian-friendly space. They have been reducing some of the traffic flow through that area to make it easier for tourists to make their way through the area. And as a result, the last numbers I saw, the traffic accidents had been less. Nonetheless, we do not know yet officially what happened in this case. Obviously, this car was traveling at some form of speed to hit that barrier, to be able to be put up like that, and then to have this kind of a response as a result. It typically wouldn't be something that was happening at a slow speed.
Right. We're now being told that this car may be linked to a larger crime incident. Apparently, perhaps several pedestrians may have been hit by this car. We do not know what may have happened to the person who was driving that car. Again, right now we're seeing these live pictures. You can see firefighters there, but we don't see police there and don't know what happened to that driver.
We're just getting word from our assignment desk, who's tracking this story for us, that there are multiple people injured in this car crash, and we apologize that our camera's in a fixed position, so we can't at this point expand out to show you more of this. But as we said, this car crashed at 44th Street, 7th Avenue, and when it did so, we're getting reports that it struck multiple pedestrians. Again, now we're worried. It raises some issues whether this was done intentionally to strike these pedestrians, or if it was an accident where the car lost control, or some other issue. Again, early stages of trying to determine what would happen. But it's very disturbing to learn that multiple injuries now are being tied to this car crash in Midtown. The conditions on those people at this point are unknown, and police are closing Broadway from West 42nd Street to West 49th Street as a result of the investigation.
Right. Right. We know that from all we can see right now are those firefighters that are working on this car. Again, we're not quite sure what happened to the driver, if that driver is still in the car, needs to be extricated, or if that driver is now just talking with police. But you were looking at live pictures from a fixed camera, Times Square. This is over 44th and Broadway. As David just mentioned, police have now shut down Broadway between 42nd through 49th Street because we're being told that they have several pedestrians that have been hit, supposedly by that car there on your screen. But this just happened just a short time ago when we came on the air. We could see that the car was on fire. There was thick black smoke and some flames coming out from underneath that car. Firefighters have since been able to get that fire under control. But you can imagine the scene now in Times Square and all those people and all those cars now essentially being shut down and forced to go otherwhere. You can see an ambulance just driving through, as well as a police car on this live picture. Again, we have been told that several people have been injured in this incident. However, we do not know the conditions. Unfortunately, we have seen situations similar to this in London,
in Sweden, 4 people killed and 15 injured. There have been warnings that have been put out to be on the lookout for vehicle ramming attacks for whatever motive. That there is an issue that's worldwide now. Everyone is on the lookout for. I mean, they've been happening from 2014 to 2017. I think the last thing I read was a terrorist, and not saying that's what this is, but that they have carried out 17 known vehicle ramming attacks as being the latest way of getting their message done.
You're looking at live pictures right now of Newscopter 7, and you can see an aerial shot here. You can see police and first responders arriving on scene, and you can also see the crowds there trying to navigate their way through the streets, but still obviously hustling and bustling. I'm not quite sure which side street that we were looking down on there to tell you exactly where it is in relation to the scene that we just showed you a few minutes ago of that car on the sidewalk on its side. Maybe we're hoping that Newscopter 7 can kind of get back into a position. Well, there's our fixed shot right there, and you can see. And
that's 44th and Broadway, as you can know, and that's the heart of Times Square right there. The theater district, restaurant row, tremendous activity, very busy section of Manhattan. And of course, at this time of day, on a beautiful day, I can only imagine it was packed with tourists, as typical of this time of day and for the weather, the situations that we're dealing with right now.
We don't know how involved that fire was, but if you look onto the ground, what appears to be, you know, that soot and char that now appears to be kind of in that pedestrian sidewalk area. But again, we're not quite sure how big that fire was for that car. When we kind of came on the air, it had looked as though most of it had gotten under control by the firefighters who had arrived on scene. And there on the other side of your screen is another shot from Newscopter 7. And you can see the sidewalks have been cordoned off there, as well as the main street there. Still, unfortunately, not able to tell exactly which street that is. And you can see at the very top right part of your screen, the taxi cabs now being forced around this crime scene area after several pedestrians have been struck by that car there on the left side of your screen. It's on the top left side of your screen. On its side now, as firefighters make sure that the fire is officially out. But again, Broadway between 42nd and 49th Street now completely closed down.
And from what we can make out from the video we're looking at, it does not seem like it is a progressing scene. It seems like it was contained to this incident right now. Again, we're early stages of this, so who knows what they're doing or how far this investigation is going at this point. But what we do know is that there was one incident where a car crashed into multiple people, injuring them. This happening at 44th Street, 7th Avenue, or just moments ago. And as a result, the area has been closed off from 42nd Street all the way to 49th Street as they investigate this situation. What we have seen, though, is a firefighter response dealing with that vehicle pertain. But in terms of security or any concern beyond that, it seems all contained to that area right now. It's not been a widening investigation that we can see. Again, we're limited. We're looking through a microscope of an incident that just occurred.
Right,
and it's getting information coming in just now.
We have just received a photograph from a witness. A viewer has just sent us this of the scene. It's a little tough to see, but it is from a viewer. And obviously, as we know, the NYPD, when something like this happens in an area like this in New York City, obviously that they are on top of this. They are fully aware of the situations that have happened, as we have seen in London, as in Sweden, as David was talking about just a few minutes ago, with investigators at both of those scenes when those happened. And investigators immediately, while we do not know anything at this point whether or not this was a tragic accident, a crime, or perhaps a terror attack at this point, at this very early stage.
So hard to know. I mean, here we are in a city where Vision Zero is such a priority because of incidents where cars have jumped curbs and hurt people and have nothing to do with terrorism or any other thing. A lot of times it's just an accident or just a reckless driver. So we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But in this era, you can't help but wonder when you have a car racing through a busy pedestrian area, hitting multiple people, their conditions not known yet, but they're injured. No, that we do know at this point. It can't help but raise questions, and that's what we're going to do, is continue to raise questions until we can finally determine exactly what happened in this situation.
Right. We're now being told that victims are being treated at several different locations within Times Square, from West 44th Street to West 42nd Street. The victims appear to have been struck by that out-of-control car. Police obviously trying to sort out all of this, as we are as well. We understand that 7th Avenue will be closed through Times Square, and cross streets are also being closed at 6th and 8th Avenues. And as you can see, that car still remains on its side. This is at Broadway and West 44th Street. Can someone confirm that? Because we're also being told it's at West 46th Street, too. So if we can just get some confirmation on that, that would be great. But you can see first responders, detectives, police kind of moving through that left part of your screen. On the right part of your screen, you can still see firefighters keeping a close eye on this car right there, trying to make sure that that fire that they just extinguished does not spark
I have to say, you know, just from the posture, just from the manner that's being treated, it feels, and that's all I can go by here from experience and covering these stories on the street, like they're treating it like an accident at this point. We're way ahead. I don't know the motive or what really happened, but oftentimes when you have a situation where they fear that it's something else and it was intentional, they tend to ratchet up a different type of security response to these kind of things.
Right, and we are not seeing that at this point.
We're not seeing that yet, and although the streets are cordoned off, you can see so much public pedestrian traffic around the area right now, because you would always wonder if it was something else. Are there other people involved? How much progressed it has gotten in terms of the situation? That's not the picture we're showing you right now. So again, early stages, we don't know a lot about what's going on. Would not be surprised if this was an accident or a reckless driver in that category of what we're dealing with. But again, we're still trying to desperately get all the information we can, because we're getting pictures in. Some of our viewers are there right now sending us photographs. We're going through what we can right now. We're also reaching out to the police. We have crews on the way there right now. Obviously, you can see Newscopter 7 is over the scene, making our calls to see if we can get more details into what caused this multiple pedestrian incident where someone struck, multiple pedestrians struck by a car in Times Square.
Right, and we still at this point don't even know how many victims there are. All we have been told is that there are several people who have been injured. Police describing it as an out-of-control car, which you can see on the left side of your screen, where it came to rest there. This is at the corner of Broadway and 44th Street. The car is kind of now on its side. We do not know how this situation ended, but you can see crowds gathering now at the corner here as the yellow police crime scene tape is now up, cordoning off areas, making sure that firefighters and police can get into the area here. Lots of streets have been closed down. We understand that Broadway between 42nd and 49th Street have been shut down, along with parts of 7th Avenue as well. But again, we are still waiting for some information, more information on the situation that has happened here. It happened about, I would say, about 20 minutes ago. We received reports that several pedestrians had been hurt by an out-of-control car. We came live on the air, and we saw firefighters working on that car in the heart of Times Square at lunch hour today, as firefighters were working on the scene because there was a car fire. They are now going into that car. As you can see, we're still looking at live pictures from our fixed camera there. And then we had learned that several people had been injured. But again, we do not know the situation or the circumstances of how this situation began. You know, this, in terms of just a traffic accident, this has been a priority of the Mayor de Blasio's campaign. His Vision Zero. His Vision Zero. They invested like $1.6 billion to change crosswalks, medians, bike lanes. It's a city that's filled with traffic problems and traffic issues, but they had been proud of some of the gains they have been making in terms of accidents. In fact, roadway fatalities in 2017 showed about a 20% drop from the first quarter of last year. That doesn't mean that accidents don't continue to happen, and we don't know if this was an accident or if this was intentional. But these are the things that they worry about in terms of traffic, cars, busy intersections in New York City where there's so many people. You see right here in the main screen, the fire department, their priority is first response. They're there right now. Make sure that everything has been taken care of in terms of the vehicle, in terms of any other problems that they can deal with now. The victims, the people whose injuries we still don't know what extent, have been taken to several hospitals in the area. St. Luke Hospital is very close up here on the Upper West Side, but they have a lot of choices, and especially for multiple trauma, Bellevue on the east side they can get to very quickly. There's a lot of choices to hospitals. You're going to find some of the best in the world here. So the care is being attended to right now. We have reporters working on getting us more details. We do have a little bit of more information that we do want to share with you, that we can tell you that a total of 13 patients are right now being treated, that they had been injured in this accident, and we do understand the driver of the vehicle is now in custody. We do not know anything about that driver right now or how they were taken into custody. We do know that it appeared that when firefighters were working on the car, that driver was already out of the car at that point. But a total of 13 patients right now reported at the scene and currently being treated. We do not know what kind of the extent of their injuries. And it's, in the end, it's a reminder of how vulnerable, whether it's intentional or accidental, we all are in a city where so much pedestrian traffic is sitting, walking, and dealing with commercial traffic and private traffic. There's so much vehicles coming and going in the area, and it's a very difficult thing. It's really a reminder for everyone to be aware. There's bicycles on these roads. These cars are traveling, some of them too fast, around corners, coming down intersections, and it'll double park cars and other issues, and you're going to have an incident, whether it's intentional or not. It's something to keep in mind when you're dealing with living in New York City. All right, we're going to go ahead now to Carl. He's joining us by phone. He was in Times Square when this incident happened. Carl, it's Liz Cho and David Navarro. Can you hear us?
Hi, Liz. Hi, David. Yeah, I can hear you.
Good. I understand that you were there at the time of this accident. Can you describe to us what you saw?
Yeah, I was in Schubert Alley about to tie up my bike, and someone came running around and said someone's hitting people, cars hitting pedestrians in Times Square. And so I took my bike around the corner. The car had already, presumably the one involved was already on the pole. There were some people helping a street vendor who looked like he got hit. And then not moments later, there about 6 cops came in, with somebody who presumably was the perpetrator, stuffed him into a cop car. They came down from south on Broadway up to 45th and put the person in the car and then took off. And right after that, a lot of action was happening with lots of police cars coming down 45th, and the car started on fire not long after that.
Hey, Carl, tell us what the driver of this car looked like, and what was his condition?
Well, I don't know if he was the driver of the car. The cops brought somebody, from down Broadway, and put him into a cop car. And they weren't, it wasn't a friendly hello. They were stuffing him into the car.
Was this person injured?
Didn't look like it.
Young,
Although
older?
the way the car was wrapped around the pole, it's hard to tell that anyone could have survived it as a driver. It was pretty bad. The airbag was out, windshield was smashed, and it was on its side. So.
Well, when you look at that car, because from our angle we cannot tell, did it sustain damage? Does it look like it had hit whatever that side area with some force?
Yes, absolutely. The car was at a 45-degree angle with, the pole was, the engine had smashed, the car had smashed into the street pole with such force that the front of the car was, the pole was in the middle of the hood. The windshield was smashed. The airbags were deployed. That car was going very fast when it hit that pole.
Carl, from when you got to the scene, you must have been asking people what happened, what happened, what happened. Did anyone tell you that it seemed like this driver was doing it intentionally? Did it look like, did anybody say whether the driver looked like they were having a medical episode? Any indication? Or did anybody give you any indication what they thought was behind the driving in that manner, in running people over?
No, not explicitly, but there was, it must have just happened because there were some other bystanders near the corner of 45th and Broadway, and I asked them if they saw what happened or if they knew what was going on, and most people didn't.
Right.
This is probably, what I'm assuming is this was the end of whatever scene had occurred where this car had been running over people. This was the terminus of it, if you will.
Right.
All right, Carl, we really appreciate you calling in and giving us a sense of what you saw there. We appreciate you taking the time to talk us through this. Thanks so much.
Carl, before I let you go, just your personal reaction to what happened there.
My reaction, well, it's horrifying. What can you say? Even if it's just an accident, it's really bad for those that were involved,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very much so. And obviously our thoughts are with those victims, those 13 victims right now, where at this point we don't know the extent of their injuries. Carl, thanks so much. We do also want to check in right now with Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett. He is on the ground. And NJ, can you tell us where you are and what you know from there?
That's right, Liz. We're at 7th Avenue and 46th Street, as you know, the heart of Times Square. This is precisely the type of situation the NYPD has been worried about. You can see where the car has come to rest at the corner of 45th Street and Broadway and 7th Avenue. That is where the car came to rest. I have just spoken, Liz, moments ago with an eyewitness to the scene, a man who now describes himself as a survivor. And what he told me, again, this is coming from one person, but a very credible eyewitness, who says that he was standing on that corner in that vicinity when the car apparently came careening up the street the wrong way and driving directly into a crowd of pedestrians. He estimated that as many as 20 people were clustered in this one area where the car apparently drove directly into that group. Now, again, this is one person describing it, but he said to me, it certainly appeared to him as if it was a deliberate act. Of course, the police are here investigating. They have not made that determination yet, so far as I've been told, but there is no question that this has become a huge crime scene. It's only happened just a few minutes ago. This has not been going on for all that long, but there is, without question, it is the type of day where you'd have a lot of people in Times Square, busy day, beautiful day in the heart of Midtown Manhattan. So that is what I can tell you right now from an eyewitness, a very credible eyewitness whom I spoke to just a short time ago. We have that interview. We're going to turn that around and get that back to you. And you will hear him describe precisely what he saw, and you'll hear the conviction in his voice. He was absolutely certain that it could be nothing else.
NJ, we want to stick with you for 1 second, but I do just want to interrupt you for one quick second to let you know that we have just learned that one person has died in this incident. And 13 people have been injured. in addition to that. And Mayor de Blasio has now been briefed on this situation and has said, obviously, there are still a lot of unknowns, but we have just been told that one person has died from this incident. NJ, can you go ahead, and I know that you just got there just a short time ago, but can you go ahead and describe, I mean, obviously this is happening in the heart of New York City, and to have such a vast area now turned into a crime scene and have so many other streets shut down with so many people who work and are visiting the area. Can you go ahead and describe a little bit of the scene there?
Well, what you're seeing now, Liz, is the crime scene as it's been roped off. Now I want to walk you around. Gus Alonso, if you can, maybe to flip the camera around. Let's go this way, and you can see what we're looking at here. The people who are there, who managed to survive what happened here, are now all here, and obviously hoping, as we are, to find out, to get some sense as to what's happened and what the motive might have been, what the cause of all of this might have been. So these people are all here, and then traffic is backed up all the way back to 59th Street and Central Park on 7th Avenue. No question about that. Now, if you come around here, you can see a New York City bus, MTA bus, is now stopped in its tracks here. You can see the fire department response over here, and traffic on the side streets has clearly, obviously, been stopped. The traffic on the side streets stopped and traffic blocked off there. But again, you're seeing the vehicle itself, and you can see how it came to rest. That is not the aftermath of a car that's not the aftermath of a crash where someone sort of had a slow speed collision. I mean, that's a high speed collision.
NJ, we want you to stay with us. NJ, stay with us. We just got some video in that we're told was shot just moments after that vehicle crashed into the pole. Here it is. You can see it in the right screen for our audience.
Wow.
You can see the smoke coming out from the engine. You see the fire department putting a hose on that vehicle. This was just, we're told, moments after that vehicle at apparently a high rate of speed crashed into that, but we do know also after it had plowed over a number of pedestrians. We're hearing right now that the number is at least 13 and that one person is dead. We don't know if that one person dead at this time was a pedestrian or somebody inside that vehicle, but that's what we're being told at this point. At least one dead, at least 13 injured, and this is the video moments after the crash where it hit that pole.
And this is really the first shot that we are seeing of this car that gives you a sense of how fast this car was traveling as it went through those crowds and also came to crash into what appears to be a light pole and some pylons there on the pedestrian plaza of Times Square. But there is some dramatic damage done to that car, and that could have only have happened by it traveling at a very high rate of speed. We do also just want to let you know that we have just been informed that Governor Cuomo is en route to the scene there in Times Square. But NJ, I want to send it back out to you, and as you kind of describe the situation and the scene that you are seeing right now.
I just want to add one other thing. The White House is also aware of this. The press secretary tweeting out that President Trump is following this situation and getting updates as well. Back to you, NJ.
Yes, David, an important point that the eyewitness that I spoke to made is that he said at least one of the people who was run over in this incident was a young child. And he said from what he could see, there were a number of injuries. So obviously a number of people who were clustered in that area. You know, Liz was saying that, and echoing certainly what I said, that this appears to have been a high-speed collision. You also look at what's there. Those what we call bollards in the business are set up to prevent cars from going into the pedestrian plaza. So it appears here as if the car was stopped, not just by the pole, but by the other planters and things like that. Obstacles have been set up to prevent injuries within the pedestrian plaza. So I think it's fair to say that at least the car got stopped there. But yes, I mean, to recap what the eyewitness has told me, and again, a very credible eyewitness who was walking away from the scene, said he didn't want to stay. he couldn't bear to be here any longer. But he said that it was a high-speed collision, a number of people clustered in this one area. He said as many as 20 people may have been run down in one form or another by this car as it drove the wrong way up the street at a high rate of speed. He said there's no question in his mind that this was done deliberately.
You know, it's important to note that very recently, days ago, the Homeland Security Deputy Director, during an interview, was talking about that everyone in our area needs to be aware because of the history of vehicle attacks that have occurred. It's the latest tactic that terrorists have been using around the world. We talked earlier about the case in Sweden where 4 people were killed. And, of course, we know about the car that rammed the pedestrians on London's Westminster Bridge. And, of course, also in November, a man drove his car into pedestrians and stabbed several people at Ohio State University. So there's been a number of cases, and many of our officials who are monitoring things are saying everyone needs to be vigilant and be extra careful, in particular to traffic that's in our area. We still don't know the motive in this case, but it's in the back of a lot of people's minds.
And can I ask you, while you were seeing a huge mass of first responders there, have you seen any sort of increased security since this incident has happened there?
I would not say that it would be something I could discern easily, because this whole area is now crawling with NYPD officers. You can obviously see there's been a huge FDNY response. So it would be difficult to discern that necessarily from what you'd see in an ordinary emergency response, Liz. And something I would add to the conversation is that I've thought this for a long time. If anything were to happen in Times Square, it would be photographed from multiple, and I emphasize multiple camera angles. And I'm not just talking about surveillance cameras that the NYPD has installed. I'm not just talking about store surveillance cameras. I'm talking about people on the street who simply walk up and down Times Square doing Facebook Live. They're live streaming things. People are taking pictures of one another at any given time of the day or night in Times Square. I'm sure you've literally got hundreds of eyes on virtually every square inch here. So there's no doubt in my mind that this incident will be something that they can go and reconstruct almost frame by frame. Given the amount of cameras that are trained on this area.
That's a great point.
Yeah, very good point.
I want to ask you, we're seeing that Governor Cuomo is at the scene. We're just showing the video right now. He's being briefed by law enforcement. Can you see him? Do you have eyes on the governor and where he is? I think we may have lost NJ's signal at this point, but you
Excuse
just
me,
that.
David, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
David?
I was just saying that.
David, yeah, I can hear you, David.
We were just looking at video of Governor Cuomo touring the area and being briefed by police and first responders. Wondering if you can see that and can you tell us what's going on in that respect?
Yeah, it's difficult to see from here, Dave. I can't.
I understand.
I'm walking around trying to crane my neck. I can't really confirm that.
Sure.
I can only talk about what I see.
Right.
And I can only talk about what the eyewitness has told me.
Right.
No question.
We have videos.
If you were just joining us right now, we want to go ahead and set the scene for you and let you know what has happened here. You were looking at live pictures of Times Square near 44th Street and Broadway. You were seeing pictures there of the police commissioner. I'm trying to see who else is within that group there, but you can see a lot of city and most likely state officials there. That car right there is at the center of what has happened here. That car, we understand, plowed into several crowds in Times Square within the hour, injuring as many as 13 people. We understand that one person has died and that driver is now in police custody, but there are still several questions as to exactly what has happened here, as whether or not this is a tragic accident, whether or not this was done intentionally, whether or not this was an attack. We do not know.
Let me just give you the latest that we're getting from our assignment desk on that front. We're being told now that the driver is a Bronx man in his 20s. We're also being told he has 2 prior driving while intoxicated arrests and other motor vehicle violations on his record. After the crash, police are saying he attempted to flee and was captured by police and held. We've been talking about the mayor, the governor, also the president being informed about the very latest developments to determine, what's going on, what was the motive. But we're getting a clearer picture now. It's starting to come together a little bit in terms of who this person was that was behind the wheel of that car, according to the police. A driver said to be from the Bronx in his 20s with 2 prior driving while intoxicated arrests and other motor vehicle violations on his record. That doesn't mean that there might have been some other thing that was driving him to be on that street at this point, injuring people the way this occurred.
And it would certainly calm many fears because of what has happened around the world, as we have seen in London and Sweden. And we have talked about these terror attacks where terrorists have used a car to crash into pedestrians and purposely injure them and kill them. And again, this being New York City, this being Times Square, and a very similar situation happening, it raises a lot of concern, it raises a lot of questions. But we are learning just very preliminary information right now about that driver. As David just mentioned, a man in his 20s from the Bronx who may have a history of DWIs. DWIs,
right, and other motor vehicle violations. And in a city like this, it doesn't take a lot to cause a problem, like to hurt people because of the crowded situation, so many pedestrians on the road. And if someone just accelerates at the wrong time in the wrong place, they can cause a lot of damage. But that doesn't mean that the investigation is complete or even halfway. It's just beginning. They yet to determine what the motive, what was really behind this incident. All we know is the aftermath right now. We can see that the Times Square area, much of it shut down because of this accident. At least we're looking at least 13 people injured. Their extent of their injuries not known, and at least 1 person dead in this situation. Don't know how that happened or where that person was when that fatality occurred. Of course, we've got a team of reporters working this story right now to try and get you the very latest. We've got N.J. Burkett. We've been talking to him, Rob Nelson, Jim Hoffer, Candace McGowan, all at the scene, talking to all their sources. We also have at the hospitals in the area, Bellevue Hospital, Darla Miles, and Kimberly Richardson working this for us.
The Associated Press is now reporting that the driver who is in custody, we understand, is being tested for alcohol. So just one more piece of information as we begin to try to piece this puzzle together as to what exactly has happened here. We want to send it back out to N.J. Burkett. He is in Times Square. And N.J., if you can kind of set the scene for us from your angle.
Yes, Liz, obviously police officers, firefighters have all converged on this part of Midtown. This is the heart of Times Square. The vehicle has come to rest at 45th Street. And Broadway and 7th Avenue, where the avenues and Broadway and the Avenue come together. So this is what is now being referred to as a crime scene. They have to investigate it as a crime until they can determine that it is otherwise. But based on an interview that I did with one very credible eyewitness, he said it appeared to him as if the car was driven deliberately into a crowd of people, a crowd of as many as 20 people. He said perhaps even more. A number of people, he said, were sent scrambling. He said some appeared to be extremely seriously hurt. Others appeared to have been perhaps grazed by the car. Apparently, as the car came up the avenue, people just began jumping out of the way, doing everything they could to avoid the car. There was no, at least from what he said, no warning, very little warning. People apparently all over the place, and it was, he said it was a scene that he's trying to forget. It was very difficult for him to describe what he saw. In fact, I saw him half a block away as he was leaving the scene, saying that he couldn't bear to be there any longer. So again, police have not confirmed precisely what it is that has happened here, whether it was deliberate, whether it was an accident, maybe it was, a mechanical problem with the car. This man did not think so. He said the car seemed to be careening in a deliberate direction for a group of people. So that is what we're looking at here, Liz. Obviously a very disturbing scenario, if that's how you describe it. We are waiting, of course, to hear more from the police. They will obviously determine exactly what happened here. And as I said a moment ago to you and Dave, there are cameras everywhere in Times Square. People are using their cell phone cameras. There are fixed cameras. There are counterterrorism cameras. So I'm convinced the police will be able to go back and quite quickly reconstruct precisely what happened here frame by frame. So that, you can assume, is going on right now. That's protocol for this kind of investigation. They've got multiple teams together. They send those teams then out into the field, and the surveillance team will get to work on the surveillance pictures. The eyewitness team will get out and grab as many eyewitnesses as possible. All of these things are happening simultaneously. And as all of those teams do their work, they will eventually they will come together, and then they will brief the commanders on what they know. They will put together a scenario about what happened here, and then we'll know. We do know that the driver of the car, the apparent driver of the car, was arrested, was taken into custody. And from video that I have seen here that I've not been able to confirm whether it is the driver or not, he is being led from the scene in handcuffs under his own power. He did not appear to be injured. Liz, Dave?
Victims, and you can see a lot of trauma to them. The latest number now, again, we've been talking about at least one confirmed fatality in this case. The number of injured now at 12 injured in this accident on 45th Street and Broadway, this incident where this car crashed and mowed down a number of people. We have Eyewitness News reporter Rob Nelson also at the scene. And Rob, I understand you have an eyewitness with you as well?
Afternoon, Dave. This is Bismal. We were pulling up to the scene and ran into him, and he offered some video that he took. He was here right in the immediate aftermath of what happened when that car plowed through this crowd going the wrong way up 7th Avenue. So again, tell me a little bit about what you saw. You didn't see the actual accident, but you were telling me it was a pretty grisly scene there on the sidewalk.
All you seen was people on the sidewalk all the way from 42nd to 45th on the sidewalk. All you see is oil in the trail of the car coming on the sidewalk. It's pretty graphic.
And let me ask you this, what condition the victims who were on the ground, some of the video that you gave us showed people on the ground being helped by Good Samaritans. How badly injured do those people look to you?
I would say they were badly injured. Most of them had blood coming from the head, a few scrapes and bruises, but most of the people were unconscious, couldn't get up afterwards.
And what was the crowd react? How was the crowd here at Times Square reacting? Beautiful day, people are out, a huge crowd out here. How were people kind of digesting what happened?
It was chaos. Everybody was trying to help. People was recording, police was getting people back. It was just chaos.
And did you see the actual arrest of that driver? Did you see the police chase? They were going after the driver of that car?
Yeah, I actually did. He actually got out the car and ran across 7th, and that's when he was tackled by a bunch of police officers, at least 12 officers.
So about a dozen cops were chasing him at the time?
Yeah, exactly.
And any description of the driver that you saw from your vantage point?
I just seen that he didn't have a shirt on, kind of my complexion. That's all I really seen. I didn't see his face.
Older guy, younger guy?
He's pretty older, you can say.
And I know it's somewhat speculative, but did it seem at this point like an accident, or did it seem like this was somehow deliberate? I know police are moving us back, so we'll wrap it up here in a second, but did it seem like an accident to you? Someone who was just confused? Or?
It wasn't an accident. It was either intentional or somebody on some medication.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Guys, the police are moving us back, so we're going to have to send it back to you, okay? Thank you.
The immediate aftermath of this incident that happened in Times Square within the hour from now. At this point, as we have seen an absolute show of force from the NYPD along with the FDNY and the first responders. We have seen Governor Cuomo. We have seen the police commissioner there. We know that Mayor de Blasio has been told, obviously, about this incident. We have not quite seen him yet at the scene. We know that the NYPD, considering where this incident is happening, are now ratcheting up their protocols and telling investigators not to touch anything, just in case that they will, if they see anything suspicious, send in specialized groups to handle the situation. just out of an abundance of caution. However, at this point, this does not appear to be terror-related. We do understand the driver, who is in custody, is in his 20s. He's from the Bronx. He has 2 prior DWIs on his record and other infractions. He did try to flee. He was taken into custody, and he is now being tested for alcohol.
And you can imagine the shock of a car running down people like this in Times Square. But we just got video in that we want to share with you that shows Good Samaritans rushing to other people's aids. Again, we're talking at least 12 people injured in this. One person, there is one fatality in all of this, but the video that we were getting in is showing people try to help other people. You could see a group there. They're not sure what happened, but they came to that person's aid seconds after they had been hit by that car as they wait for an ambulance and first responders to get to the scene. A true character of many of the New Yorkers that are out there rushing to rescue.
And you hate to say that we've seen situations like this now in so many other places. You saw the people helping the victims on the bridge in London. You know, we have seen, unfortunately, so many scenes like this play out. But you know, as we look at this video, as we just get it in, you know, we have been told that 12 people have been injured, and this accident happening at the height of the lunch hour on this beautiful summer-like day here in New York City. It is nearly 90 degrees out there. Times Square, just the hub of tourism, the hub of New York City. As we look at live pictures, and you can see investigators now combing through this car.
Now, that car's at the intersection of 45th and 7th Avenue, and when Rob Nelson was talking to his eyewitness, that eyewitness suggested that this car was traveling the wrong way. That was the only one I've heard so far to say that, and it's not clear if he was mistaken or not, but that is one report, that this driver was heading the wrong way, and clearly was going fast enough to hurt some people. Here's some pictures right now of Governor Cuomo, who's on the scene getting briefed by the police. Governor Cuomo also met and was and consoled some of the victims at the scene. I saw video of that. He was talking to them and trying to reassure them that everything can be done, will be done. And then he met with the police and kind of get an assessment of what kind of a situation we're dealing with. Again, the person that they have in custody, the man they're calling the driver, is a man said to be in his 20s with 2 DWIs on his record. He has other motor vehicle infractions. And the thing is that after he hit that pole, eyewitnesses and the police are saying he tried to flee the scene. He tried to run away, and he was police chased after him. They captured that man, now in custody.
And we're even being told at this point that when he tried to flee and police caught up to him, we're now being told that he tried to punch a police officer as they tried to take him into custody. And he also may have been driving with a suspended license. I mean, obviously, the police are working right now with a plethora of evidence, with the car, with the license plate, whatever identification this young man may have had on him. Clearly, they know who he is, and they have his prior record already. So they are working with a lot of information. And NJ mentioned as well, there are cameras everywhere. So that if they don't know yet, they certainly will know exactly what happened in this incident.
I just gotten more on the path of that vehicle, that red vehicle that crashed in the end there. The police are saying that that driver, the Bronx man that we've been telling you about, he appears to have gone head in the wrong direction north on 7th Avenue. Everyone knows that's a southbound road. 7th Avenue, he was heading north in the wrong direction for about 3 blocks. Can you imagine, through Times Square, one of the busiest thoroughfares in the world? He was traveling, this is according to the police we're getting right now, at least 3 blocks, heading in the wrong direction on 7th Avenue, striking pedestrians, multiple of them. Again, we only know about 12 injured. There may be more, but we can confirm 12 and 1 fatality. And until finally crashing into that pole that you see in the picture there at West 45th Street. And then after that, police say this driver attempted to flee, jumped out of the vehicle and tried to run away. As Liz just mentioned, they're saying he punched a police officer, and they took him into custody.
Yeah, we want to send it back out to NJ Burkett, who's near this scene. And NJ, I know that you've been speaking with other people who witnessed what happened out there.
Yeah, Liz, people said it was a horrifying scene as the car came careening up the street the wrong way and then into a crowd of pedestrians. They said it was horrifying. They said people were flying everywhere, scattering, doing everything they could do to get out of the way of this car. The intent of the driver, something something we can't tell you right now. Police are trying to get into the scene. We can let them through. But this is what you're seeing right now. I mean, clearly, where are we? We're an hour, perhaps, into all of this, and it is still a chaotic scene. Police have taken us from 46th Street, where we were, and moved us back a block. So this is now where they want us to set up and establish our live position. But you can see the police tape that's been set up here. The vehicle now 2 blocks from us at the corner of 45th Street, where the avenues intersect. And yes, I mean, from what I'm hearing, the eyewitness accounts of this, Liz, are very disturbing. Very disturbing. And you can watch now in the live picture, you can see the police, security people here in Times Square moving reporters and bystanders back. A number of witnesses chose to leave the scene because they couldn't bear to be here. Others have decided to stay and wait and see how this all unfolds, and perhaps even standing here, as a lot of us are in the media, trying to process what has happened this afternoon.
Just to let you know that we have just gotten a very brief statement from the NYPD that says, quote, 1 male in custody in the Times Square vehicle collision. It is believed to be an isolated incident. It remains under investigation. So that very brief statement that we've just received from the NYPD, 1 person in custody, the driver in custody, appears to be an isolated incident, which is a bit of relief. Obviously, this has been a very tragic day here in New York City, with 1 person dead and 12 others seriously injured after, as witnesses described, just an absolute horrifying scene happening here within the hour of this car just driving the wrong way down 7th Avenue and just plowing into people.
And, of course, the victims immediately taken to area hospitals. We have Darla Miles right now. I believe, Darla, are you at Bellevue Hospital?
That's right, David. Bellevue Hospital awaiting any of those victims from the Times Square crash. Again, we do know that 12 people have been injured. There could be possibly more injured. We have seen a number of emergency vehicles and police vehicles come in and out of the hospital over the last 30 minutes or so. Again, no way to confirm yet that this is involved with the Times Square crash, but we do know from prior experience that you will see a bevy of activity, especially here at Bellevue, and the capacity that they have to treat victims of these types of accidents. We do expect some of the victims to come here. We have reached out to Bellevue Hospital. They are working on getting the information. But again, 12 people injured. We've been told that some people are actually being treated right there on the scene, triage units right there on the scene, just to make sure that those victims receive the care that they need. Right now, again, we're awaiting those victims to come from Bellevue Hospital and awaiting words on the range of injuries from this car crash. Dave, Liz, back to you.
All right, Darla, thanks. We just got more video. The story continues to evolve. We're going to show you, this is moments after the car hit that pole at 45th and 7th Avenue. As we said, this car was traveling, according to police, the wrong way up 7th Avenue and then turned at a rate of speed to cause this. You can see a lot of, there was fire, there was smoke, and immediately the fire department right on the scene to put that thing out. Moments before this, police say the driver tried to flee on foot and at one point actually even punched a police officer. This driver is said to be a Bronx man, a man who has a history of DWI and other motor vehicle offenses that he's been charged with. But at this point, police are saying they believe this is an isolated incident.
Do we still have NJ Burkett with us? NJ, can you hear us?
Okay. Let's talk about the guy.
I unfortunately don't think we have NJ Burkett, but I did. Oh, NJ, are you there? No NJ. All right, but I did want to say, you know, this is something the NYPD is prepared for. This is something that it coordinates with the hospitals in this city, that is well prepared, unfortunately because of our history, that they know exactly what it is that they need to do when a situation like this unfortunately comes up. But at this point, thankfully, it appears that this, as the police said, this is an isolated incident. It does not appear to be terror-related. It appears to be perhaps a young man with a troubled driving history may have gotten himself into trouble again, obviously, with the police. But that he is now in custody, and we are being told that he's being tested for alcohol.
We have Rob Nelson, I should say, has another eyewitness to what happened. Let's go back to Rob, if we could, who's there at the scene. Hey, Rob, what do you have?
Hey, Dave, Liz, you guys have me? You hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, good. I can tell you right now, a pretty chaotic scene out here. They've, over the last few minutes, just kept pushing the media back several blocks. And the issue here is they don't know. We heard one cop literally tell us this. They don't know what's in that car. So for police safety and public safety, they want people to get further back until they give the all clear to that vehicle. So we're keeping an eye on that. Also right now, with this gentleman here, sir, what's your name?
Mr. B.
Mr. B, okay, and you were here. You saw this happen about noon.
I wasn't close to TKTS when the car flipped over there and hitting some people. But I don't went there because I was scared something happened. And I stay here on my eye here. But that happened like 1 hour ago.
I understand. Let me ask you this. What was going through your mind when you saw that car kind of going up the wrong way and hitting people?
Oh, I remember what happened in Paris. I thought it was like terrorism or something. You know, the car riding right this is like, remember Paris.
Yeah, we've seen these kind of attacks before.
Yeah.
Right now, what the police are telling us, though, they think it was an isolated incident. It does not appear to be terrorism at this point, at least. Does that come at least as a little bit of relief despite the chaos of the day?
Of course, because I work here every single day.
Right.
You know.
And have you ever seen anything quite like this?
No, I never seen like this, never.
And as that car was coming up, what was going on the street? What was the mood like?
From what I know, he was driving on the sidewalk down to 45th Street, and then he flipped over on Times Square.
Did you see police chasing down that suspect, the driver of the car?
No, I didn't see that. I just saw a lot of police coming and crowded, police, and that's why I saw it.
And did you see anyone injured on the street?
No, I didn't see that because I don't get closer.
Okay. Because you were scared. You didn't know quite what was going on.
Yes.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So, guys, again, if you still have it here, again, still quickly unfolding situation here. Again, police definitely were in a heightened sense of urgency, pushing the press back. You can imagine several dozen reporters, local and national, out here at this point, just because it was so unclear for a while exactly what this was and what the injury/death toll would be. At this point, as you know, one person confirmed dead, 12 others injured, and keeping an eye on that. Of course, we don't know. That number could potentially rise. But again, police now don't know what's in that vehicle. The suspect is in custody, but the car that he was driving, this man in his 20s with some prior DWI convictions, as you noted a second ago, they're now trying to get in that car to make sure everything is okay. But again, the big headline, one of them at least, at this hour does appear to be an isolated incident. So maybe things will begin to cool down in a minute, but still lots of questions about exactly how this happened. And the busiest neighborhood in New York this afternoon still in the state of a lot of chaos and a lot of questions. For now, reporting live in Times Square, Rob Nelson, Channel 7 Eyewitness News. Liz, Dave, back to you.
All right, Rob, thank you very much. We are coming up on 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We've been on the air for about an hour or so now. We do just want to bring you up to date on what we have been covering. So the breaking news here in New York City, you're looking at live pictures of Times Square after what has just been an absolute horrifying situation for so many people down there. A car driving the wrong way on 7th Avenue plowed into several crowds of people. What we do understand is at least one person is dead and at least 12 people have been injured. You can see that car came to a dramatic stop there. This is at 45th and Broadway, where firefighters put out a car fire there. The driver has been arrested. What we know about the driver thus far is that he is a man in his 20s from the Bronx with a series of DWIs to his record, along with some other infractions. When this accident happened, we understand that he got out of the car. He tried to flee this accident. He was stopped by police where he was confrontational, tried to punch one of the officers before he was taken into custody. He is now in police custody, and the NYPD have said that they believe that this is an isolated incident. The
injury count, as it happens with these kind of things, has actually gone up now. The latest number that we're getting from the fire department, you see 12 there, but it's actually, we're being told it's 19 people injured, along with the one confirmed fatality. And as Liz just said, the police may be treating this as an isolated incident. However, they're still, out of the abundance of caution, running all their counterterrorism protocols. They're looking at the driver who fled that scene and who they captured. Responding officers being told, treat everything as evidence, don't touch anything that appears suspicious, including the suspect's vehicle, until specialized units arrive. Governor Cuomo, the police commissioner, the mayor, all responding. We had pictures of Governor Cuomo speaking with some of the victims, and you could see how badly injured they were just at the scene. You can imagine the ones that had to be transported out. Here's a picture of the governor getting briefed on some of the police activity and what they're doing at the scene. The president as well has been keeping track of the latest developments out of Times Square.
And we were just hearing from our reporters who are in the scene just these stories from these witnesses of just utter shock and heartbreak and horror as they saw this car come careening down 7th Avenue, several blocks in the wrong way on what is a very crowded area on any given day, let alone a beautiful day here in New York City where it's in the 90s and so many people are out trying to enjoy this gorgeous day, but people just desperately trying to get out of the way of that car. And many were unable to. And as we have seen all morning long, people trying to help those victims. We've heard about cuts and people bleeding in the streets, but just very sad and very frightening scene down there.
We have a team of reporters at the scene, at the hospital, trying to find out what they can about the suspect involved in this case. Let's go back to NJ Burkett, who's at the scene, and get an update from his position. NJ, what's the latest right now?
Well, Dave, police have moved us yet another block up. So we're at the corner of 7th Avenue and 47th Street. The car came to rest now 3 blocks from where we're standing right now. I will say that perhaps the most vivid, the most dramatic, and perhaps the most reliable eyewitness account I have heard so far from this car crash in Times Square comes from a man named John Fanning. I saw John Fanning about half a block from the accident shortly after it happened. He stopped, he's on the street. I said, did you happen to see what happened? And he said, he shook his head. And he said, yes, I did. He said, sadly, I saw everything. And I said, well, if you don't mind, please describe to me what you saw, where you were, what you were doing. And he said he was standing basically near where the people were hit, and then proceeded to describe the horrific scene. Here is what he told us.
I'm still very upset. I mean, I was almost killed. And several people were. There were at least 20 people. It looked like at least a dozen people that were injured. And there's blood everywhere, and it's pretty bad.
And so, from what you could see, he was going the wrong way on the street, and then he just plowed into the group of people.
He just drove up, the person drove up onto the sidewalk, drove over a whole bunch of people. It seemed like the kind of thing that's been happening in the news. I can't say whether or not it was intentional, but it certainly, to me, seemed like an intentional act,
Well, the words of one very reliable eyewitness shortly after the incident. Again, as we've been saying and emphasizing for the past hour, the police are here. Multiple teams working the crowd, working the surveillance cameras, and obviously they're doing everything they can to talk to the man who was driving the car. They will determine whether they believe that this was an intentional, deliberate act to run over a crowd of people here in the heart of Times Square. So you hear what one witness has said. I imagine other people have echoed similar sentiments. So now, all right, one moment here.
All right, just bear with us.
Okay, yes. Yeah, well, one of the captains on the scene has just informed the press that they are eventually going to move us up a little closer to the scene, perhaps by another block or so. Dave, I want to make this point. Liz mentioned a moment ago that police have confirmed that this was an isolated incident, and that's extremely important because in terrorist attacks that have happened overseas, and again, we don't know what this was, but they have to respond to it as if it were a deliberate act, as if it were an act of terrorism until they back off or confirm that. But in terrorist attacks overseas, there have been cases where an act will take place and then there will be a secondary attack. In some cases, there might be an explosive device intended to kill or injure first responders going in to help the victims of the initial attack. So that's one of the things that they began doing in the first several minutes of what happened here. So when Liz mentioned that, and I heard it in my earpiece, I sighed a sigh of relief. That was the first bit of good news that we've heard so far. But that is also one of the reasons that they've moved us back. So part of the protocol, there's no question about that. That's what they do. Again, the cause of the crash, the intent or lack of intent, still not clear now, just over an hour after the crash took place.
And Jay, we just got an update, I guess in terms of the victims in this case, as we've been reporting, one person dead, 19 injured. We're being told 4 of the 19 are considered in serious condition. The rest are considered to be non-life-threatening, not as serious, but still 4 in serious condition. And NJ, if you're still with us right there, I'm assuming that all the victims have been pulled out of the area, correct?
Yes, Dave, I think that's a fair assumption. The victims that well, it's difficult to say. I mean, the victims who could be treated.
Right.
And I'm phrasing it that way because, you know, they've confirmed that one person has died. I don't know if that person has died at the scene or if that person has died at the hospital.
Right.
One of the things that the witness, John Fanning, told me was that one thing that troubled him so much about what he saw was that one of the victims who appeared to be very badly hurt was a young girl.
Yeah. Well, you should know that, and I don't know if you've gotten this information yet, but we're being told that the commissioner, the mayor, the fire department will hold a press briefing at 42nd and 7th Avenue to brief us and the public and to give us the very latest. They're trying to pull that together. As soon as that happens, of course, we'll bring it to you.
Yeah, we did just see a picture that was on Twitter, actually, of Mayor de Blasio being debriefed by the police commissioner, and we are expecting an official statement, I would imagine, from the mayor and the governor, as well as police and FDNY happening fairly shortly. We know that with a little bit of news that the police have put out, which was immediately to say that this was an isolated incident, what they would want to do as quickly as they can do responsibly is to allay fears that this is nothing more than a terrible, tragic accident.
They really know a lot about the suspect they have in custody already. They know his age, they know where he lives, and they know a lot about his background in terms of the DWIs in his past. So they're putting a picture together that they're going to give us more information on this as soon as they can. Meanwhile, we have, like I said, a team of reporters at the scene. We also have Candace McGowan nearby. Candace, where are you, and what can you tell us?
Here at 42nd and 7th here, and you can see behind me they have us blocked off. We're actually a little bit further up than we are supposed to be right now. They are keeping us back. You can see the road is completely shut down. They have tons of law enforcement here on scene. And just to give you an idea of just how big this scene is, if you look all the way down to 7th Avenue, you can see that they've, down to 8th Avenue here at 42nd. They shut down traffic down there as well. We were walking down there a few seconds ago and saw that traffic was not moving there as well. So they are allowing first responders to come up 8th Avenue right here between 42nd and I would estimate around 47th is where they shut down the traffic. So taking this very seriously, we've seen the canines out here as well. They were sniffing around that car. One thing that stuck out to me that was remarkable was just the force of this crash. The car was crashed right there at 44th and 7th, but there was bumpers that went down several blocks, showing just how much force went into that crash. Witnesses telling us about the fire there that they saw right after that crash, many of them shaken up by what they saw. They said, though, that there were so many people helping the victims that many of them kind of stood back. They stayed out of the way for the people who knew what they were doing and let them get to work before first responders arrived here. But again, we're right here at 42nd and 7th. You can see many first responders here. They are blocking off the scene, making sure they have everything under control right now. This is where we're expected to hear from officials here in the next few minutes as they brief us on exactly what they know at this time. They're all trying to put the pieces pieces together right now. But again, we're here at 42nd and 7th. The accident a couple blocks north of us here, but just giving you an idea of how big this scene is here. You also have tons of spectators, many people who actually saw what happened. They're waiting to find out what the results of this accident were. They were obviously very concerned about what they saw here. So obviously a lot of people wanting to know more answers, and that's what we're hoping to get from officials here any moment now.
All right,
guys, back to you.
Candace, thank you very much. Joining us on the phone right now is former NYPD Commissioner Ray Kelly. Commissioner, can you hear us? It's Liz Cho and David Navarro.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. I know that you have been watching this. You have been following the situation here. I'm wondering your thoughts and perspectives on this. Obviously, the NYPD's released just a short time ago that they believe that this was an isolated incident. I would imagine reading into that statement that appears to be a bit of good news here.
Yes, of course, we have to be concerned about someone intentionally driving into crowds. We saw that in Nice and in Berlin. And it's something that terrorists have a call for. But in this instance, it appears that this individual may have been on drugs or may have been somehow influenced, perhaps drunk. That'll all be attested by the accident investigation squad, or crash investigation squad, as they call them now. But that is good news. But it also highlights the fact that there's a critical mass of people in Times Square virtually all the time, about 18 hours a day. So I think the issue of bollards is something that should be examined by the city officials. Bollards are those metal barriers that are on the sidewalk, and they're not in every place.
Right.
They're expensive, but it's something that I think it should be perhaps re-examined based on this accident.
Do you think that they make a dramatic difference?
Well, I haven't seen the exact scene, but it just highlights the fact that there are so many people in Times Square all the time that, an accident like this or an untoward act, certainly can put a lot of people at risk. So it may or may not have made a difference in this accident. We don't know.
It's hard
but it's
to
something
tell.
that's been discussed for years.
Should
be resurfaced.
What we know so far, at least what we're being told by eyewitnesses and the police account at this point, is that this 26-year-old driver from the Bronx, they believe he was heading the wrong direction, north on 7th Avenue. He did this for about 3 blocks before he, along the way, mowing down people as he went, and crashed into a pole there at 45th and 7th Avenue. And while they have described this as an isolated incident, we do know that the NYPD is acting out of extreme abundance of caution, as you've been discussing, because of the background of concerns, running all the counterterrorism protocols. What might those counterterrorism protocols be at this time?
Well, one of the things they'll be doing now, as you have the gathering of city officials, the governor will be there. They're going to be checking the area, the surrounding area. You have to be concerned about some possible attack at those public officials. They'll be looking at this individual's background. I mean, they've said that there's no terrorist involvement. You want to make double sure that that's the case. It seems that this individual may very well have been under some influence to have him do that. It's pretty hard to make that wrong turn and to go 3 blocks the wrong way. There's so much traffic headed in the other direction. So it could have been a lot more people.
Yeah, in fact, as you were talking about barriers, we're looking at this car propped up on one of the barriers designed to protect pedestrians. Right. You can imagine that maybe that even prevented this from being worse than it might have been.
Yeah, right.
Commissioner, can you talk a little bit? I mean, obviously, it's been about a little bit more than an hour now. Obviously, I would imagine that investigators have a plethora of evidence that they are dealing with from the car, and now that they have the suspect in custody. How quickly do they know information about him and his past?
Oh, you can get information pretty quickly now. You can do a fingerprint check. They have field fingerprint devices that will, particularly if someone's been arrested in New York City, which apparently this individual has, it'll come to the fore very quickly. So that's one thing that has been improved tremendously through the years, and that is the availability of information. And information is key to solving so many crimes. But we know that he apparently punched a police officer, so he's going to be arrested for a felony, and we've now heard that there's 19 people who are injured, 4 seriously. So this is a very significant event, but thank God there's no indication as yet that it's not part of a larger scheme or plot.
Over the years, there's been a lot of debate whether traffic should be shut off from Times Square completely because of what attraction has become for tourists over the years. What's your position on that at this point?
Well, you have to look at the impact on commerce. Traffic is the lifeblood of the city. It's how stores get supplied, how people get food, that sort of thing. So there's a balancing test that has to be implemented. And no, I think you have to keep the flow of traffic going on 7th Avenue. On Broadway, you have that plaza at Times Square, and Broadway has been greatly reduced as a thoroughfare. I myself don't think it should be reduced any further, but I do think that bollards and a whole bollard regimen and scheme should be looked at for Times Square. It has been over the years, but it sort of ebbed and flowed because it's an expensive proposition. But I think you need more protection there. You can see the critical mass of people who are there, the tourists that are there every day, and they make a potential target.
Right, and even with more security in that area, you have a car careening out of control. It's not people who are going to be able to stop that car. It's going to be the bollards who are going to be able to. Commissioner, if you can kind of talk us through the process of how investigators are able to quickly determine the difference between an isolated incident as well as what could have been potentially more serious as a possible terror attack. I should also let you know that we are looking at some live pictures. We are seeing some people walk towards the car. We are waiting for a news conference to happen with the mayor, and as soon as that happens, we may have to interrupt you, but again, please, if you could just continue on.
Sure. Well, there is an accident investigation squad that used to be called, I think it's Crash Investigation Squad now, but these are highly trained people. They are in a highway division in the police department, and they respond to serious actions, what this obviously is. So they have a lot of tools, measuring tools. Forensic information will be gathered. The detectives in the local precinct squad will be going out, and others as well. They'll be augmented to get as many witnesses as possible. You'd like to get as much information as you possibly can from witnesses. Obviously, the cameras in the area will be quite important. This individual's record, which they already have, that's going to be it's going to be a factor. So they're in the process of pulling this information together. It takes a while to get the forensic information, but the information on this individual and the examination of the cameras, police department should be able to monitor them from their own headquarters location. I think it'd be pretty clear as to whether or not this individual had acted erratically, arriving at the scene, or somehow he panicked. But going 3 blocks is quite a distance in the wrong way. So something was radically wrong with this individual.
Ray, you've mentioned the cameras there. I had the opportunity to see one of those command posts where they had just a bank of cameras. And why don't you tell the audience a little bit about how many cameras are there and how well supervised that Times Square is by the police department with your own equipment?
Right. No, the police department has a lot of police officers there because there's a lot of people there. And let's face it, it is a potential target. We know in May 1st of 2010, we had an individual who drove right up to 45th Street and 7th Avenue and tried to detonate a bomb. He outsmarted himself because he dumbed it down, and the bomb did not explode. Otherwise, it would have killed or seriously injured, an awful lot of people. So the AIS investigation will obviously continue what's going on now. Yes, counterterrorism officers are there in great numbers. Lots of cameras, as you said, police cameras, but there's also cameras that are wired in, private sector cameras that are melded in to the police department system, which is it's a force multiplier. It's a good thing to be able to do that. And New York, I think, has really sort of led the way in that regard, to be able to use private sector and public sector cameras together. London has a lot more cameras than New York, but our cameras are a lot more sophisticated and can do a lot of analytical work. So, it's a godsend as far as protecting the city. And I think it's also a major crime deterrent.
Let me ask you this, Commissioner. You know, we have a massive crime scene here now, happening in the heart of New York City, with many, many streets now shut down. How long do we think that this is going to be, how long do you think that it's going to be like this for? I mean, there's so many people in this area who need to access that specific area.
Let me just add one quick thing. The NYPD just announced what they call a level 2 mobilization for crowd control. What does that mean in English to us?
This means more people coming from different units. There'll be people from patrol units, from the precincts that will send people. The task forces that they have will respond from other boroughs,
right,
to be able to take care of the crowd control. Yeah, it's something in terms of tying up the scene. Obviously, you want to do everything that's needed for the investigation, but I think sometimes we just spend too much time at these locations. You have to open it up. You got to get traffic moving. It is, as I said, the lifeblood of the city. So, if you have something in Times Square that's tied up, just as you said, it just reverberates throughout Manhattan, and you have it jammed all the way over to the east side. So, hopefully they can do it with some alacrity. Get the appropriate information, then open it up in some way, shape, or form. It's needed.
All right, Ray, thank you so much. Former Police Commissioner Ray Kelly taking time out, brief us on his take on what was happening here today. Yeah. Thanks again, Mr. Kelly.
It is about 1:23 in the afternoon. We are waiting for a news conference with Mayor de Blasio, Police Commissioner James O'Neill, and FDNY Commissioner Dan Nigro to give us our first official statement on this incident that has happened in Times Square. That car careening out of control through several crowds along 7th Avenue, coming to rest on those bollards there. After a pretty dramatic ending here. We understand that one person is dead, 19 people injured, 4 of those 19 seriously injured. We do know that the driver has an extensive history of drunk driving as well as other infractions as well. He's believed to be a man in his 20s from the Bronx, and at this point police saying that they believe that this is an isolated incident. We are waiting for that news conference to happen, which is expected to happen at any minute now. Eyewitness News reporter N.J. Burkett is at the scene. We have been talking with him for the better part of an hour. He's been talking about witnesses, and we want to go ahead and check in with him. N.J.
Liz, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, yeah. At this point, the police continue to move people back from the original scene. So at this point, we're at 48th Street and 7th Avenue. And what they've attempted to do is to back people as far away from the scene as is reasonable. And the reason for that is explained to me by one of the, sorry, just one moment here. They're moving us. By one of the police supervisors on the scene. It was explained to me precisely what I've been explaining to you guys, and that is that they always have to sweep for what they call secondary devices, for any other potential any other, sorry, yeah, they just keep pushing us back, Liz. I know you can't quite see how I'm being pushed back, but they are moving us. So they are attempting to make sure they need to sweep the vehicle to make sure there's no bomb in it. They need to make sure that there's nothing in any of the trash cans, in any of the sewer gratings, things like that, just as a precaution. Again, David was mentioning earlier protocols, and that's what they're going through now. And it's taking a lot longer than I expected it would take. They promised the media we'd be able to get back into within a block or so of the car itself, but I don't see that happening for a little while, as they've moved us now 4 blocks from where we were before. And that's the situation right now, and I hope that we will have some answers from the news conference, certainly with respect to whether this was an accident or whether it was a deliberate act, as some of the eyewitnesses seem to feel it was, Liz.
Jay, thank you. We just got an update. We're hearing now that police are identifying the driver or the suspect in this case as 26-year-old Richard Rojas of the Bronx. We told you that we're being reported he had a history of DWI and other motor vehicle violations. No word yet on the motive, whether this was an accident or whether he intentionally did what occurred here, or at least what the police charged. We do have Jim Hoffer at the scene, and he's been following the very latest on this as well. Jim, what do you have for us?
Well, what's interesting is police keep moving us for various reasons. Anyway, right now we're standing on 7th Avenue at the corner of 42nd. And as we have heard, this is the street that the driver came down in his Honda, came down here and took a wrong turn on 7th Avenue. So this is the street. He comes down here, and Brian, if you point down here, you can see, if you can see right here, this is where he turns onto Broadway and goes up another 3 blocks, careening out of control. We spoke to someone who was near the terminus, the end point where this car finally stopped, but he saw the horrific aftermath of everything that happened, and here's what he had to say.
Did you see the driver come out?
No, I didn't see the driver.
Did you see people injured on the road?
Yeah, like 20 people.
Did you see a lot of blood and a lot of debris?
Yep.
Can you just explain what you saw after the car stopped?
Too many people screaming, and the noise of the police department, and it was a terrible disaster.
What did you think? Did you think it was just someone out of control or someone deliberately trying to hurt people?
I don't know. You know, I'm tourist. I'm from Argentina. I arrived yesterday. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm in shock, you know. I don't know. It was amazing.
How close were you, sir?
Like 5 meters. 5 meters.
Can you put this down?
Like 5 meters. I was walking down the street. I saw, and I go down the street, and the car passed. I saw it at 5-10 minutes.
How fast was it going?
Really fast. 100 kilometers an hour. It was really fast. It was like a bowling, hitting people.
Like bowling, like kidding people. And I think that because of that, we have to really mention here, at least, that this does seem to parallel some of the use of vehicles against civilians that we've seen in Belgium, in Germany, as recently as outside the Parliament in London. Although right now the NYPD is saying that this seems like an isolated case. It seems like an accident in which the driver fled the scene. But one thing that we should also mention, that the police, the NYPD, they were already on alert. And why is that? Because earlier this month, the propaganda magazine called Rumaya came out in May. It is a magazine put out by Syria and Iraq ISIS. And that magazine, in a section titled, make sure I get this right, Just Terror Tactics, it called for something just like this, quote, targeting civilians using vehicles to ram them and to run them down. When that came out in this propaganda magazine put out by ISIS earlier this month, that's when the Intelligence Bureau, they take note of this. They keep watch on this kind of propaganda put out by terrorist groups, including the Rumaya magazine. When they saw that, they then put out a notice to all of the NYPD people on the front lines. And this is what it said in that memo to the NYPD police officers. They all received this. It said, quote, from the NYPD, quote, while there is no known specific or credible reporting regarding a threat to New York City at this time, members of the services are advised to practice heightened situational awareness. That went out to all NYPD officers earlier this month after the Rumaya magazine, the propaganda arm of ISIS in Syria and Iraq, called for this kind of thing, using a vehicle to target civilians in the West. But we should emphasize here, so far, the NYPD says that this looks like nothing more than a car crash with a driver who fled the scene. But there certainly is a tremendous response here. There are dozens and dozens of emergency vehicles, and this is something, of course, that they're going to try and get to the bottom of, to see if, in fact, this was a terrorist attack or just someone who lost control of their car doing something really stupid and really dangerous. Back to you.
Jim, and as we have been talking about, we had been told that the NYPD had been running all their counterterrorism protocols just in case, and in fact had investigators were told to be very careful with the car, or if they saw anything suspicious, just in case, and to allow these specialized teams who have been trained in this to be the first ones to get in there and to look at that evidence.
And just moments ago, the governor issued a statement.
Well, I mean, it has
I'm
to be
sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
We're done. Well, I wanted to say that, I mean, just on the surface, I mean, when we know that just in the last year, how many cases like this that we've had that did turn out to be terrorism, that's got to be the first thing that comes to the minds, not just of people who are here, people who are watching, but to the NYPD and to the Intelligence Bureau. So you can bet that they are running things down and leads and wondering if there is any connection to this and the Rumaya propaganda magazine, which called for this very kind of strike and then led to a memo going out to all NYPD officers telling them to be on heightened alert. And that's what they were this morning when this happened.
Thank you, Jim. Again, the suspect of the man identified in this is driver identified as Richard Rojas. We're hearing from Mayor de Blasio. Let's listen in.
Information I want to emphasize up front. This is preliminary information. Obviously, investigation underway. There's a lot we will learn in the coming hours. But we're going to give you the information we have at this point. I'll start, and then you'll hear from our police commissioner, James O'Neill, and our fire commissioner, Dan Nigro. So far, what we know, 23 individuals were injured in this incident. And that includes, tragically, one young woman who has passed away. The perpetrator is in custody. He's a United States citizen and a former member of the armed forces.
We apologize. We just lost the sound on that press conference that's occurring right there. But he did give us an update on the injury, up to 23 now. We know the fatality is said to be one young woman. And we know that the person who has been identified as the suspect in this case is Richard Rojas from the Bronx. He's said to have been, he's a U.S. citizen and has U.S. military background.
Yeah, a little piece of news also right there is that the mayor upped the number of injured to 23. We had initially been told that it was 19, but now the mayor is saying 23, and that included the woman who was killed in this incident. Unfortunately, we are trying to reconnect our audio with this news conference so we can get the very latest as to exactly what officials know. As the mayor said as he had started, that this is very preliminary information, but that they do have one person, 26-year-old Richard Rojas from the Bronx, a U.S. citizen, now in custody.
Now, earlier, the governor, just a short time before this press conference, the governor issued a statement. The statement from the governor reads, "Today's events at Times Square were nothing short of horrific. I was briefed at the scene by Commissioner O'Neill and saw firsthand the professionalism and diligence of New York's first responders. As facts continue to emerge, my heart goes out to the victims of this terrible tragedy as well as their families." Yeah. Now, obviously, we're having problems with audio on this press conference. We do have reporters and camera people on the scene who can give us the very latest.
The mayor also went out to say that there is no indication at this point that this was an act of terrorism at this moment. So obviously they're a huge relief for folks here. But the mayor is saying that at this point there's no indication that this was terror related. Whether or not this was intentional or not, we do not know. We have established audio, I believe. Let's go ahead and try to listen and see what we can get. Everybody lost it.
No, tíramelo, tíramelo.
That was fast. That was gone.
Is somebody stepping on the box?
We have audio now?
It's good.
It's good?
I think you can tell that the audio problems is affecting all of the coverage because there seems to be the signal that goes out where all the news reporters are at the scene has gotten disrupted some way, somehow. But we will continue to follow on this because at any moment they're going to reestablish the signal to figure out what happened. But the very latest, of course, is what we know that there's that person in custody, Richard Rojas, 26-year-old from the Bronx. And I believe we have reestablished audio.
Subject to change, and this is what we talk about at every press conference. We try to get as much information out to you as possible, as soon as possible. So at approximately 11:55 a.m., a 2009 Honda Accord passenger vehicle mounted the sidewalk on the west side of 7th Avenue at West 42nd Street in Times Square. The vehicle, occupied by a male driver, proceeded to drive at a high rate of speed along the sidewalk from 42nd. A number of pedestrians along the way. The Honda eventually came to a stop on the northwest corner of West 45th Street, where it collided with a metal stanchion. Along the route, the subject's vehicle struck 23 pedestrians, causing multiple injuries and 1 fatality. 22 victims were removed to local hospitals. The driver, a 26-year-old male, identified as Richard Rojas, a resident of the Bronx, was taken into custody at the scene. Preliminary investigation reveals that Rojas has a few arrests, and 2 of them are for DWI. Detectives are currently reviewing any other criminal history for the subject. Further investigation is ongoing. At this point, as the mayor said, there is no indication that this incident was terrorism related. Now Commissioner Nigro will talk about the injuries.
Thank you. And I'll talk about the injuries in general terms as we do. We're not going to talk about names or specific injuries. We did have 1 person who was pronounced at the scene. There were 4 critical patients removed, 2 to Bellevue, 2 to Roosevelt, with various traumatic injuries, including open fractures, including multiple traumas. None of those at this point, thanks to the fact that they were quickly transported to this hospital, is likely. But that doesn't mean they are cleared. None of those 4 are right now likely to perish. Conditions can change. We're very hopeful that the fact they were treated here quickly and removed quickly, that they will survive. 3 other injuries were very serious but not critical. They were also removed to local hospitals. 15 are less serious injuries. We call green tag injuries. All of these people have now been transported to the hospitals, are being treated. We won't divulge any names or ages or where they come from at this point, but there was a very large amount of fire department, police department resources arriving here very quickly, and thanks to that, people received care in a very timely fashion.
All right, let's take questions. In the back, yep.
There were a number of people involved in the apprehension. There were some civilians involved, but there were also members of the New York City Police Department involved in apprehension also. We have, as you know, being from New York, we have a tremendous amount of police coverage in Times Square. As a matter of fact, right on the corner of 43rd and 7th, we had a lieutenant from CRC and some police officers. Hold on, one at a time. Hold on. You got to speak up. The vehicle, at this time, we don't think the vehicle was being pursued by a police vehicle. David.
This is not, you said, an act of terrorism, but this is the kind of attack that, or kind of incident that is here now, and there might be other things that should be done or need to be done in Times Square to prevent people from getting onto the curb or picking up death.
David, as you know, the NYPD constantly reassesses security throughout the city, and after an incident like this, we'll do that also. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I would just add, there's been a very substantial increase in the number of police officers who patrol Times Square over the last few years, obviously as part of our creation of a greater anti-terror force, the Critical Response Command. In addition, other measures have been put in place. As Commissioner said, we will continue to update those measures as each situation warrants.
McGee. It's right between, it looks like it's between 4-2 and 4-3, McGee, on 7th Avenue, on the sidewalk. I'm not sure about that. I can't give you that. No, we'll give you that. We're not ready to do that yet. Okay? Yep. Well, he's in the process of being tested as we speak, and he's being interviewed by the New York City police detectives also. I can't say that with any degree of certainty right now. Right behind. You got to speak up. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, that's where he mounted the sidewalk at 4, 2, and 7, half a block away from here, up to 4, 5 Street. Yes. Now, we're in the process of reviewing all the video right now. We're in the process of interviewing him right now. Again, this is only happened an hour and a half ago. Marcia? No, of course, the worst went through my mind, and that's why the mayor and I came here as quickly as we could. I spoke to Chief Aubrey, who's the detective chief in Manhattan South, and we quickly determined that at this time it doesn't appear to be terrorist related.
Right. And Marcia, same thing, exactly. Obviously, we know the times we're living in, Marcia, and we know it's a dangerous moment in history. I also had, the second I heard it was Times Square, I knew that there was a tremendous police presence. But as we've learned more, again, there's no indication this was terror. Go ahead. Again, I think that's a different discussion than the crisis we're talking about right now. It is. We're talking about this right now. Go ahead. Go ahead. Look, my response is the same it's been any time there's been an incident anywhere in the world. We continue to go about our lives as New Yorkers. Now, thank God, based on what we know now, there is no indication that this was an act of terror. But for anyone who's concerned, my message is always the same. This is the safest big city in America. That's been proven many times over. 36,000 police officers protecting people. Even when some incidents occur, it should not change people's fundamental knowledge that they are safe and the NYPD protects them.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, please.
Before I take any more questions, I'm going to let Chief Aubrey kind of walk through the chronology of what just transpired in Times Square. Okay? Bill?
So I just want to reiterate, as the mayor and the police commissioner had said, there is no indication at this point that this has anything to do with terrorism. I'm going to take you through the facts that we know an hour and a half into this incident. 11:54 a.m., Mr. Richard Rojas, he's a 26-year-old male. He's traveling southbound on 7th Avenue. As he approaches 42nd Street, he makes a quick U-turn onto the west side sidewalk of 7th Avenue and 42nd Street. He proceeds on that west side sidewalk for 3.5 blocks, where he hits a stanchion. Between 42nd and 43rd Street, there's an 18-year-old female that was struck, and she now is dead. Her 13-year-old sister was also struck, and she's being treated in a hospital. Upwards of over 20 other people were injured between 42nd Street and 45th Street on that west side sidewalk. When he hits the stanchion on the west side sidewalk, there's a traffic agent that ends up tackling him. That's traffic agent Alfaki Abdamaggio. There's also a parole officer, and there's also patrol cops that are there that assist with apprehending him. They get him in the patrol car, they bring him back to Midtown South Precinct. He makes certain statements, which I'm not getting into. Currently, right now, he's being transported to a testing facility where Highway will test him for drugs and alcohol. As the commissioner had said, he has a previous background arrest history. In 2008, he was arrested in Queens for drinking and driving. And also in 2015, he was arrested in Manhattan for drinking and driving. His last recent arrest was in May of this year, and that was for menacing. And again, you know, we're working with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. We're working with witnesses. We're looking at video to try to piece the facts together here. But at this point, There is no indication that there is terrorism involved. We have detectives at his home. We have detectives canvassing for video. We have detectives speaking with witnesses. And again, so far, it looks like we're getting down to the facts as they come about.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're learning a lot of information about the alleged driver in this incident, but the big headline coming out of this news conference with the mayor, the police commissioner, and the commissioner of the FDNY is at this point, this does not appear to be terror-related, but you hear Commissioner O'Neill say, when he heard what happened, the worst went through his mind, and Mayor de Blasio saying, we know the times that we are living in. But at this point right now, it does not appear to be terror-related. What we do know about the suspect, 26-year-old Richard Rojas, was that he was driving southbound on 42nd Street around 11:55 this morning when he made a U-turn and drove several blocks the wrong way on the sidewalk, hitting several people along 42nd and 43rd Street. An 18-year-old woman was there. She was one of the ones who was hit. She is one of the ones who was killed in this incident. 22 other people injured. The 13-year-old sister of the woman who died was also hit. She, we are now told, was in the hospital. The driver then hit a stanchion. He was tackled by a traffic agent who then was helped by several other people in that area, who then police came. They arrested Richard Rojas. He is now at a testing facility for drugs and alcohol. We also learned about his extensive arrest record, arrested in 2008 and 2015 for DWI, and then arrested just in May for menacing.
And we've learned also about the injuries. Out of the 23 injured, 4 were said to be in critical. 2 were taken to Bellevue, 2 to Roosevelt Hospital, with suffering from multiple traumas of being run over by that vehicle. But they're not life-threatening. That was one of the points that they wanted to make. In terms of the other injuries, 3 were considered serious and 15 less serious. But the damage to the psyche of these people, and of course to anybody that was in that area that witnessed this incident, will be lasting for quite a while. Again, a fatality. What we're learning, because Liz just mentioned, there was an 18-year-old woman with her sister who was struck at about 43rd Street as that car jumped the curb, drove onto the curb intentionally from all indications, and drove northbound on from 42nd Street until it came to a stop at 45th Street, where it ran into those stanchions.
Yeah, Commissioner O'Neill kind of also describing this as the driver was driving at a high rate of speed when this incident happened. Eyewitness News reporter Jim Hoffer, he is near the scene. And Jim, there still seems to be a question about whether or not he was an out-of-control driver or whether or not this was a deliberate act.
Well, I mean, exactly. You can't in this day and age rule out terrorism, and I don't think they've ruled it out. I mean, they certainly seem to be leaning toward someone who had some issues in the past with driving. That's what they seem to be leaning toward. But as you heard from one of the persons speaking here, one of the detectives from the NYPD, they have detectives at his house interviewing people. They have detectives that have really fanned out across this area, talking to eyewitnesses. So they are really trying to track down every lead. I mean, one of the things that really stands out here in my mind is, you know, after speaking to someone who was right near the end point where this car hit that stanchion, he said that he saw the whole thing unfold and was amazed at the speed in which this driver from the Bronx had going, now think about this, going the wrong direction against the traffic down 7th Avenue. Yet he said he was going about 100 kilometers. The person I spoke to from Argentina, kilometers, you know, do the rough math here, that's about 60 miles an hour. I mean, I don't know any street except maybe the West Side Highway on a Sunday night when you can go 60 miles an hour. So it really is a mystery as to how he was able to get this kind of speed. There was some talk about the fact that he was up on the sidewalk at one point, but also the aftermath, the devastation that apparently you can see from a distance here on 7th Avenue is really, really something that we have not seen here in New York City in a long, long time, that kind of tragedy. It does, in some ways, parallel what we have seen more recently in the streets in Belgium, in Germany, in Nice, France, and also in London. But in many of those situations, it was a truck that was used. This is a car. So that's another reason why terrorism does not seem, at least in the preliminary stages here, to be the cause. Again, as the police mentioned several times, not only the chief, but also the mayor, numerous times went out of their way to say that this appears to be an out-of-control driver for whatever reason. They're looking into whether it is alcohol influenced, alcohol-related, but he's being tested as we speak, and they even haven't been able to firm that up yet. But I would suspect within the next few hours we're going to hear whether or not there was any alcohol or any drugs related in this incident. But right now, so far, they are saying not terrorism related. Back to you.
And it's also important to note that he made some kind of a statement. Police wouldn't say exactly what he said, but that may lead to more of what the motive was in this case. And as Jim just pointed out, he's being tested for drugs and alcohol, and he's got a history of driving while intoxicated.
And Jim, I would imagine that when, as we heard Commissioner O'Neill say, that they are now poring over an enormous amount of surveillance video, because as we know, there are several cameras in Times Square that probably caught every single moment.
In fact, we want to show you video. I'm not sure where this camera got this, but this, we were told, is believed to be 26-year-old Richard Rojas, the suspect in this case, in custody with police moments after this incident occurred. Don't know much about where this was taken or how it was happening.
You can see he's in police custody. We do know that Richard Rojas was at some point taken to a testing facility where they could test him for drugs and alcohol. But this was video taken shortly after he was taken into custody. As you can see, police putting him in the back of a police cruiser where he was taken to another location. But this is the first video that we are seeing of Mr. Rojas. Does not appear to have suffered any sort of injuries in this incident.
He is being questioned as we speak, as well as police are questioning people that know him. They are doing the tests, as we said, to see if he is on drugs or anything else or alcohol that may have been a factor in any of this. And of course, they will be going over his social media accounts and looking into his background, his history of incidents. He had one incident of menacing that they did not get into the details of it, but they did discuss it as part of painting the picture of who the suspect is in custody right now.
And that was that just happened this month. They said it happened in May.
In May.
So not too long ago. Eyewitness News reporter NJ Burkett is also at the scene. Oh, we don't have NJ. Okay. Do we still have Jim with us? All right, we're trying to reconnect with Jim Hoffer. Can you hear us?
Block traffic at 7th going south. Which happens?
Yeah, someone was turning in the
Okay, we don't have Jim Hoffer either. But as Commissioner O'Neill was saying, that they are going over all of the surveillance video, and that this was caught on surveillance video, and that clearly is going to tell a very clear story of exactly what happened here. But whether or not Mr. Rojas was driving out of control or whether or not this was a deliberate act, we still do not know yet.
Let's go to A.J. Ross, who's outside the police precinct, to get the latest from that position there. A.J., what can you tell us?
David, Liz, I can tell you that Richard Rojas, he was initially brought here to the Midtown South Precinct on 35th between 8th and 9th, but we're being told he was just moved. As you've mentioned before, he's now being tested for drugs and alcohol in his system. What we do know is he's from the Bronx. He's a former member of the Navy. We've also learned that he has 2 prior DWI arrests, and he also has some other things on his record involving motor vehicle violations. What we were told was he initially tried to flee right after this accident, but police were able to apprehend him. He allegedly also punched a police officer while he was being brought into custody. We're also being told he may have been driving with a suspended license when this tragic accident occurred. And of course, charges are most certainly pending, but just what those charges may be are still being sorted out. But we do know he was initially brought here to the Midtown South Precinct, and again is being tested as of right now to see what, if any, drugs or alcohol may be in his system. David and Liz.
All right, AJ, thanks. We got Nina Pineda in the area as well by Times Square, by our GMA studios. Nina, can you check in with you right now and tell us what you got?
Yeah, David, we're up on the second floor of the GMA Times Square studio looking over what appears to be pieces of the vehicle. You're looking at in front of the Hard Rock Cafe at 43rd and 7th. You see where those little yellow cones are on the sidewalk in front of the Hard Rock there? Those are pieces of the vehicle that ran onto the sidewalk, again, right in front of the Yankees clubhouse. This is all on the first floor of the famed Paramount building. Again, a piece of the bumper there. And Jamie, go back right by the 21 there behind the truck. You see a large piece of the bumper of the vehicle cordoned off there with the police barricades in front of Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. Continuing now in this drive up 7th Avenue the wrong way. The vehicle, I can only imagine, was just losing pieces as it struck into pedestrians, which is horrifying to think about. Now we're right in front of Viacom, right in front of the Oakley store, Jamie. See that on the ground there where it's marked off by caution tape? That's a big piece of the bumper. Now I'm looking at two pieces of the bumper. I don't know what direction the car was facing, that two big pieces of a small car could be, about a block and a half apart, as pieces of this car sheared off with the driver in the vehicle hitting pedestrians along the way. It's just horrifying to look at the scene. And now finally, one more block up from 44th and 7th at the corner of 45th and 7th. There you see the red Honda on its side, stripped of both the back bumper and the front bumper, which we see just leaving this trail as it went the wrong way up 7th Avenue and left this trail of destruction. It is a ghost town here at the Crossroads of America. There is a giant design market set up. Of course, since they shut down Times Square, made it mostly a pedestrian mall. There's all kinds of food trucks, vending, and as everyone's been saying, it's been a beautiful day with people taking advantage of the weather. But just to see this from the vantage point of the GMA Times Square studio and the path of destruction and the pieces of the car is truly horrifying.
Very powerful vantage point from where you are, because like you said, I don't think I've ever seen Times Square on a beautiful sunny day with not a soul to be seen in this picture. And you can also just get a huge idea, a scope of how big this crime scene is.
Oh, completely. Jamie, the fire truck just moved. Jamie, go right back to that. See how they have the 4 police barricades? Yes. And then you see the bumper that appears to be, I don't know if it's the front or the back bumper, but it's like a whole piece sheared off in one solid piece. So what are you hitting with the force of this vehicle? I mean, we're in such a pedestrian city. We're just trusting every day that we walk around and cross the crossroads that someone's going to stop and that you're not going to get run over. And here is an example of when car versus person in these incredibly crowded streets, the force of the vehicle and how much would have to happen for these bumpers to be sheared off. A block away, so this is in front of Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, the first bumper. The second one is about half a block away in front of the Oakley store, and that's just sitting there as well, upside down. And then as you go further up the street, all we see now on the street, Jamie, come back so we can get a vantage point of the car. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio. We'll continue to monitor from our vantage point.
Nina, you're giving us a great idea of the travel that it took, because right where your position is where it started. It started right in that spot, in that area around 42nd Street, when he jumped on the wrong way and went on the sidewalk, and then went north up the block to 45th Street, which is about 4 blocks away, 3 blocks away, and finally coming to a crash there at the stanchions. Only imagine the street must have been packed with people, as it is every day in Times Square, and the result, 1 fatality, an 18-year-old woman, 23 injured, and again, 4 of those in critical. But they are telling us that those injuries are not considered life-threatening.
Now, we're really just hearing some of the very beginning of the horror of what these people endured when that car just went out of control. Still lots of questions regarding Richard Rojas and whether or not this was an out-of-control accident or whether or not it was a deliberate crime. We're going to have much more throughout the afternoon on this breaking news. Again, we're going to leave you right now with pictures of Richard Rojas as he was being taken by police to be tested for drugs and alcohol.